switch seat. Good evening. This is the Littleton Zoning Board of Appeals. It's July 18th, 2019 at 7:15 p.m. And we're opening the meeting at the Littleton Town Offices, 37 Shattuck Street, room 103 in Littleton. And we have we have 6 people on the board tonight, 3 alternates, so we'll try to alternate the alternates, make it work.
The alternates.
I'm going to call the 715 case, number 927A. Petitioner Mark Anderson, are you here?
I am.
Okay. Seeks a variance pursuant to Section 173-108B for accessory dwelling within 40 feet from boundary line of the open space at 9 Balsam Lane. Mark, if you come forward and bring a chair up to the table with you. Yeah, the way we do that is pretty informally. You present your case. The board will then ask questions. We'll ask if there's any abutters. We'll read any comments that came in the record.
Okay.
And I think you're here in front of us for a variance, so there are a few things you have to satisfy. That is that your lot owing to soil shape or topography is unique, and that by virtue of its uniqueness, you have some sort of a hardship if you're not allowed to get the relief you're requesting. So why don't you have the floor now?
Do you normally hear like a background, or what do we do right into the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you want to
Oh,
present.
okay. So thank you, first of all. And we moved here about a year and a half ago, and we really love this town. It's great. So I moved here and then quickly realized, because of having a snowblower and a garden tractor and a lot of those things, that they just weren't going to fit in the garage, a 2-car garage. And so I needed a shed, so I went and got a shed that was 12 by 10. I did speak to the builder and his person at the time who worked for him and said, hey, give me a sense of, I know that probably needs to be a certain distance from the edge of the property. And the gentleman said, yeah, it's probably 10 feet, standard 10 feet in from any property border and so on. And then I went and filled out a shed permit application, of course, and then handed that in. And then I received a phone call from the folks at the town office saying, your shed permit's being approved. And in the meantime, the folks who built the shed, who were delivering it from Rhode Island, said they were coming by, was it possible to deliver the shed early? And it would save me some money on delivery. And I said, well, yeah, it sounds like I'm being approved, so let's do it. And so I put the shed up, technically before I got the final permit. That's my mistake and something I learned from, but I thought it was in process and it sounded like it was being approved. And it went with the in 10 at least, and it's more than that from the perimeters. But getting back to some of the points that you just brought up, the topography of the property is kind of unique. It's not flat, number one, so it eliminates it's about a little over half an acre. House is kind of in the middle. All the front is his hill, and a big portion of that front is driveway and/or septic, which goes up around, wraps around the left side of the house, which would have been optimal, because then it would have not had the zone in the back, which is the part that's being stipulated. It would have just been a neighbor's property, which only, I think, the 10 feet would have then satisfied. So there's really very limited places to put a shed on the property because of the septic, because of the driveway, and behind and to the right of the house is too close to the property line, and would have been right next to the house. So it would have been kind of an eyesore having a shed right next to your house. And there's also a rule that has to be a certain distance from your house, I believe, as well. So that's what I was thinking of when I put the shed in that spot. And I have a map, and I've talked to the building folks about that, and I can certainly get that if you have it in front of you too, but the septic takes up quite a bit of what would have been an optimal place to put the shed.
Okay, can I just interrupt you one
Please.
second? And I apologize.
My first time, so I'll
I
do my
have
best.
to, I have to appoint 2 alternates. I miscounted. So John and Jillian, you're going to be the alternates for this hearing, for voting. And, I'm sorry, go.
Oh, no.
Keep
please.
going.
Am I going the right way? I've never done this, so,
Yep.
okay, thank you. Again, I was very proactive about reaching out and doing the shed permit. I think it's the right thing to do, and I know some people don't, but I was like, there must got to be a permit, so that's what I did in the first place, and then was following what I thought to be the right guidance from the builder, and also truly the topography of the lot really puts the shed in about no other place on the property than where I could put it. And then in terms of if I were to move it, I also did a foundation of stone to make it really look good. Again, you're trying to, I think permits and these kind of statutes are designed to not have an eyesore or not have things put in the wrong place or things like that, and there's lots of intent, but one certainly is to enforce a property to look good, and I did my best. I matched the siding. It looks just like my house, the roof color, everything, the shed. It's a really nice looking shed, and we built a really nice base for it, and it has stone around it. So to do that again would be quite costly, to even move the shed and then to build a new foundation for it, level the land, and the things that we did would be very expensive. So that would be quite a hardship to, have to do that again. In terms of if there's an issue with neighbors, I know my neighbors, even the one that would have been next to it, there's a huge space between our houses because the way the property goes, mine sort of ends and then there's a hill that slopes down and then his lawn starts. So it's not close to his property at all. It's probably at least 100 feet from his property. And he loved it and he said, "Where'd you get your shed? I'd love to get one of these." So it's not, I know it's not bothering the neighbors for sure, if that's a potential thing to consider as well. But I think the biggest thing is, where would I move it? I think that's the part that I would struggle with even now if I had to move it. Where could I move it based on the lay of the land and the property?
Board, any questions?
Can I just ask when,
Where's his lot?
more for Sherry.
sorry.
Sherry, how does it work as far as ZBA in open space?
That's what I'm struggling with, and I'm not really sure that I can answer that. This was a project that was done under a open space plan through the planning board. And the site that you mentioned in your application materials is that there's a condition in the open space permit that you're to be 40 feet away from the open space land. Typically and generally in Littleton, a detached structure only needs to be 10 feet from the lot line, and that's what you were relying on, and that's what the builder, I think, that you questioned was relying on.
Right.
My concern with this one, Jillian, to answer your question, is I almost think that we need to find out where that open space is and what it does. There was some open space in this particular project that was intended to be corridors for wildlife. There was some open space that was intended to be connectivity to other open space down in that neighborhood, and maybe even to the train station. And what I'm concerned about is that his shed not be in what might have been anticipated to be a 40-foot wide corridor to permit either pedestrian traffic or mowing and haying of the open space fields or whatever. I don't know what it was for. And I don't know if we can answer that without the planning board.
I can give you a little bit of what I think based on where it is, because I know that there's plans that are to develop around there and things like that. So actually, I mow that area. And it's so nice, because you remember, and I wasn't here, but it used to be a tree farm. And there's beautiful pine trees that they purposely left in that open space that I was thrilled. That's why we liked the lot so much. And there's, so there's kind of, and there's, but the point of being that if they were to take any of that down to make they'd be knocking down things that they purposely left. They were full-grown. You would have bought the Christmas tree, but you didn't, and they grew into beautiful trees. And I actually mow around that because it's that beautiful. And so it's sort of,
Come here.
it's almost like a nice landmark. It's probably one of the coolest features of that lot, and I think
Yeah, okay.
it adds a
So-
lot of value in terms of aesthetics there. It's really it looks great, and I keep it mowed. And behind it, it's just a bunch of field, and it gets obviously taller with all that. And they do mow that once in a while, the people that own it.
My concern is that we had this struggle a month or two ago with another planning board open space decision, and my concern is that we not grant a variance for something that the planning board intended to be an integral part of their determination. Would it jeopardize you in any way to continue for a month while we ask the planning board to weigh in? Your shed's not going anywhere.
No.
And to the extent that planning board has no problem, I think I'm hearing some establishment of a hardship. I defer to the board to tell me otherwise. I mean, I always hate when people ask forgiveness instead of permission, and I always hate when your hardship is self-created. That's not really a hardship under the variance rules, but I went by it. It's not in a terrible place. It's clear there's probably no other place for it, and it's not hampering anybody. So I just want to be sure it's not interfering with what the planning board intended for open space. Anyone else?
That's fair.
Typically, it's the neighbors. Your neighbor is open space that's affected by this. So in that way, we need the planning board to say, this isn't impacting our vision.
Do you know which one it is anymore?
I know
So,
my neighbor,
Can
the
you
one neighbor.
locate, can you
oh,
locate it on the plan
Yeah.
for the rest of the board
It is a
members?
lot
Where are
longer.
you?
Yeah.
I penciled in the little shed location there.
Oh, you did?
I have a bigger one of these too. Oh, this is the lot.
Yeah, but we're
So-
trying
oh,
to take it in
trying to find
conjunction
Oh,
with
I
everything
see.
else.
So let me take this.
Because there's other things it does say on here, like pedestrian, like there is notation on there.
Can you see pedestrian notation
Uh-huh.
in the open space or in the 40-foot buffer?
Just in general, so I can't,
Yeah,
There's-
this is the neighbors and that's me. Yeah, that's
Okay.
me right here. So this is what's technically
That's
behind
the
it.
open space
Towards
corridor.
Open space, that's it, yeah. That's good.
And I don't think
Oh,
you're
goes
a
this
walking
way.
corridor the way the hill is, the
Okay.
way the topography was.
So either, matter of fact, I've walked it for fun, and that would be quite challenging to build for potentially a path to the train or something like that.
yeah, I just don't know if it's open, like, I don't know if it's access for, because there is field behind him.
Right.
Well, it
And
doesn't actually block the open space, but it is surely within.
Although
the
technically could get it over here.
egress of the open space
Yeah.
or whatever.
The
Setback.
shed's not on the open space, but it's on the
Right.
40-foot buffer.
Correct.
Yeah.
That they-
And what was the
They
intention for the
established it
40
for a
foot?
reason. I mean, they didn't just say open space, they said open space plus a 40-foot buffer. So I think we need to
Yeah,
defer
that's
to
it.
them. Do you all agree?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll take a motion to continue. I'm sorry for any inconvenience.
That's okay,
but
it's fine.
We'll take a motion to continue for 1 month, and we need a time and a date certain. So the third Thursday of August will be,
Yeah. This Thursday is, let's see.
thank you,
Yeah, no worries.
15th.
15th?
That's the third Thursday?
Well, It's
Yeah.
early in the month.
Yeah.
Must be 5 Thursdays.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's a Thursday, that'd be the
yeah,
third
we'll
one,
put
right?
you on again at 7:15.
Yeah, it's 5 Thursdays.
Well, that's the earliest it can be. in
So
the
as early as heck. So that, when I heard third Thursday, that was like, great, because that'll be the 20th something when we're back from vacation.
Yeah, the
we're on
first Thursday is the
vacation.
first of that month.
Yeah, we booked a vacation about a year ago to go to the shore with our family on the 12th through the 18th.
So
Why don't we go 2 months, again, because if the shed has to be moved, it's not gonna matter whether it's this month or 2 months down. And
I'll be back.
frankly, we need time for the planning board to have a meeting, maybe, to get
Okay.
back to us.
So September, then.
19th.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, September 19th is the
19th?
third
Now, I
Thursday.
just may need you to waive any timelines,
September 19th.
and so I'll ask you to put it on the record, because I don't have the paperwork here. But you agree to waive the timelines, the time within which we must open the decision and the time within which we must make a decision, you agree will be extended
Absolutely.
similarly 60 days?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right.
So
September
now that
19th.
meeting is going to be 9/19
Yeah, and that's here again, same
Yes.
place, okay.
at 7:15.
Can we ask for a better plan of it where it is?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, too. Even if you had to sketch it on your plot plan or something, we really want to know where everything is.
I can try as much as I can do in terms of the big thing, draw it out. I can give you like a Google map or anything to help you.
Yeah, anything that will help
If we
us
give you a
with the
variance, we
visual.
have to refer to
Yeah.
actual dimensions.
Okay,
So
yeah, let me do that for you. So I'll use the big one I have and try to do my best to space it in there and measure for you and all those things. Sure.
Okay, so will someone make a motion, please?
Make a motion to continue case number, there's no number.
927A.
Sorry, 927A to September 19th
At 7:15.
at 7:15.
Okay.
Second.
And I'm going to ask our admin to please ask the planning board to weigh in. And could I ask you, do you have a check for us for 3238? Were you told to bring
Can
it?
you use cash or has to be a check?
It should be a check. Maybe you can drop it at town hall.
Oh, absolutely. 30, yeah, okay, I thought you could do cash, but I can do it. Yep. Do I drop it in the buildings department, same place?
Yes,
Perfect.
please.
Great, thank you.
I think it's either advertising or posting fees.
Right. Okay.
who was the
Second.
alternate on this?
I have Jillian and John. Okay,
I didn't hear a second, so I'll second that.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You continue till September, and thank you for
Thank you.
understanding.
No, it's great. And what was you said the other people you're gonna check with, just from my, remember, you're gonna check with a building?
Planning board.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
okay.
planning board.
Thank you.
Okay. Time is 7:30. I'm calling the 7:25 case number 929A. The petitioner Peter March of New Hampshire Signs seeks a variance from section 17335 to increase the existing sign to greater than 50 square feet at 25 King Street. Mr. March, will you come forward?
No, I printed it out.
Oh, okay, that's the issue.
Now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, so John Field, you're the voting alternate on this one.
Yeah. So if that's the Shell station, it's going to become mobile and have pizza days. I think yeah, it's a big sign. We've had it before in this.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Peter March, New Hampshire Signs, 66 Gold Ledge Ave, Auburn, New Hampshire. We're requesting a variance to add 15 square foot to a pre-existing ID sign at 25 King Street, Littleton. The property is 2.5 acres and it's Zone B. So the sign is an ID sign that serves the mobile station with a convenience store that offers 3 grades of fuel as well as diesel, as well as a car wash, Dunkin' Donuts, and shortly a pizza or other fast food outlet is moving into that space. It fronts onto King Street, but also fronts onto Kimball Street and essentially Air Road, where it becomes King Street, so it has a number of frontages onto the road. We requested permits to reface the sign and increase the area by 15 square feet to accommodate an additional tenant, an additional price unit, and we were denied under this section of the code.
When did you present that?
That was, it was a verbal denial, and it was, I want to say 2 months ago.
Oh, to the building inspector.
To the building inspector.
Who
yes.
said to bring it to the zoning board?
He suggested that we bring it to the zoning board.
Thank you.
It was a verbal denial.
Thank you.
So under section 17335, we're allowed 50 square feet. However, we would have been allowed a secondary sign under the following part of the code. Section 2, secondary signs for lots with remove, and I believe that's supposed to be remote secondary access. 1 secondary freestanding sign so arranged as to be not less than 300 feet measured horizontally from the principal freestanding sign would be allowed. And we would be allowed 25 square feet in the case of a secondary sign. So in other words, by right, we would be allowed 50 square feet. We would be allowed a second sign because we have frontage on King Street and we have 3 accesses to that property. We would be allowed a secondary sign. Basically that would be allowed under code. However, to do that, we would have to move the existing sign. We would then have to place a second 25 square foot sign 300 feet away on the property. So essentially what we're asking, and by the way, the definition of remote secondary access is property access to a business or group of businesses in addition to the principal property access. So I believe this falls under that. So the logic of our approach is to say we don't necessarily want to add another sign, another 25 square foot sign, and move this sign so they're 300 feet apart. We want to be able to add a small secondary sign to take care essentially of the new business moving into the property or the new outlet. It's shown on this as Sal's Pizza, but it could be any number of pizzas or fast food outlets. So if we
Said, oh, rats.
I beg your pardon, ma'am?
Oh, rats,
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's not Sal's.
Sal's Pizza,
Sorry.
I think it's okay. I don't have a strong opinion on it. So obviously, if we'd followed through with this, we could have put another sign on the property and moved it 300 feet and put another base in and moved power to it. But it seemed to us that that would have been a pretty onerous solution to a relatively simple problem. Obviously, to find in our favor, the board needs to consider, firstly, that a literal enforcement of the provisions of this chapter would involve a substantial hardship. The owner of the station is Energy North Hafner's. They recently bought the car wash, so it's now under their aegis. The car wash is set fairly far back from the rest of the property, and they have a need to promote it. And one of the ways gas stations promote this is by offering a discounted price for gas if you buy a car wash. So in other words, when you buy a car wash, you generally get 5 cents off or something like that. So they need to promote it, and to promote it, they wanted to add another price digit to a small price digit. So the site is unusual in some respects. It hosts multiple businesses: the mobile station, a convenience store, a gas station that offers 3 grades of fuel as well as diesel, a car wash, which is a separate building, a distinct business, a Dunkin' Donuts, and this future pizza or fast food outlet. So each of these businesses are separate and distinct from one another and have separate needs for promotion. In some cases, different clientele. For example, not everyone buying gas wants to also buy a pizza. Not everyone using the car wash will purchase coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. Each part of the business requires some distinct promotion. We're able to reuse most of the current sign, and at a reasonable cost, add 1 price unit and 1 additional sign cabinet for what is currently shown on the diagram of cells. Again, if we put a secondary sign in that we would be allowed by code, we would have to move this sign to get the 300-foot rule, and we would have to add at pretty substantial cost a second sign. We'd have to run power to it with all the cost of that. So our estimate is to do this whole program to code would probably be in the $30,000 mark, with the new sign, the new base, the new power, and that sort of stuff. And logically, adding a second sign would also add unnecessary clutter and would yet not be as effective as adding a simple 15 square feet to the existing sign. So the hardship is essentially cost. It's also the fact that the car wash is set well back off the lot line, and it's also unique. This property is unique in that it offers so many different services to customers at particular times that need individual promotion. Secondly, we need to prove that the hardship is owing to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structures. The site is unusual in that it hosts a number of different businesses. It fronts roads on 3 sides, essentially King Eyre Street on 2 sides, Kimball Street on the 3rd. It's at a busy intersection with a traffic light, and a fair amount of confusing visual distractions present themselves to the average driver. Traffic speeds are high past this site. It's posted at 35, but traffic seems to flow at least this speed or higher. As I said, the car wash, C-store, and gas canopy are 3 distinct, somewhat disjointed structures. The gas canopy has an effect on visibility for the rest of the station. Keeping one sign that identifies as a single entity, I believe, helps reduce confusion, clutter, and probably helps the traffic. So these elements make this site unique in the area. If we were granted this variance, it would be unlikely that other sites would conform to this unique situation. Finally, we need to show that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, or without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of this chapter. In general, the purpose of the sign code is to limit clutter, improve the appearance of signage, and to provide businesses the means to effectively promote their wares. If we were to follow the code, as I said, we'd be allowed to add a second sign that would add to clutter, not be as effective as it would be just to add minimally to the existing sign, and be expensive. This provision of the code serves aesthetic rather than functional or dimensional goals. It's intended to prevent excessive or discordant signage. It seems that adding an additional sign is an effective economical approach that would serve the area, the public good, and the intent of the code much better than adding an additional sign. And we request that the board consider this sensible, effective method of achieving a legitimate goal.
Board.
So, right now, it's 2 stanchions or 2
Yes,
posts. And you're not increasing the height of them, you're just basically changing out the different elements of it and adding the additional price element and the additional fast food element.
So from a purely practical point of view, the addition is the Sal's Pizza and the car wash in terms of dimension. The rest of it, we're just moving stuff around and adding different signs into that. So the current ID sign, the actual part that says mobile, is 13 square feet. The 2 price part on the existing sign. And that
One
is
second, I need you to go slower.
I can print this. I can give you this print, ma'am.
Mobile is 13 square feet, go ahead.
Mobile is 13. On the existing sign, which is the little diagram of the 229 price, it's 19 square feet. The Dunkin' Donuts is 10, and the car wash is 6 on the existing sign. On the new sign, the ID remains 13. 2 price remains 19. The diesel is 10. The Dunkin' Donuts is 10. The car wash is 7. And the Sal's is 7, and that adds up to 65 square feet. So our 15 square feet is gained essentially by adding to the bottom and just literally swapping faces around within the sign.
So you're reducing the car wash a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the height and width is not changing, you're just adding those 2 sections
Yes,
essentially.
the overall height is within code. In fact, the sign is within code right now. So really all we're doing is essentially adding 15 square feet to the bottom. The faces get moved around, and it's a little bit difficult to understand where they're going, but they all go, and the cabinets are all movable and are being moved, so,
Do they touch each other,
yes.
the 2 new cabinets that
Yes.
will be butting up against
will
each
be
other,
butting-
no
they will.
space in between?
Yeah.
And the overall height of the sign now is 18? Is
I-
under 18?
I believe so. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely within code.
What's the current dimension to the lowest sign now, and what will it be
Yeah,
with
because
the
there's
new
an exit there.
configuration? And just to add to the question, will it create an obstruction if somebody's looking under the sign to see oncoming traffic or something like that?
I don't believe that will be the case, because the sign is set, it's at the correct setback. And when you drive down that road, when you drive down King Street, heading either way, the sign is actually off your field of view. So I don't believe that would be the case. I know that there are many other signs that have a lower bottom, if you like, than this one.
Those aren't going to be lit, the new panels at the
Yes,
bottom?
ma'am. Yeah.
They are going to be lit?
They are going to be
How?
lit. In this case, probably LED lighting, internal lighting.
internal lighting.
Yeah, it's currently internally illuminated.
But just the prices, not the lower signs.
No, everything's lit. It's a completely lit, and again, that's within code to internally illuminate it. It's lit till, I believe it's half an hour after the business closes, and it turns on as the business reopens in the morning.
You've described a very busy and sometimes treacherous intersection, and I agree that less clutter is preferable, but I went there today and was troubled by the fact that there are some temporary signs that are taking up a lot of space on the poles and creating a lot of clutter. I don't know what your plan is for those. One is the Dunkin'
I would be
Donuts.
delighted for you to make that a condition of the of the variance. It's
Then I
something
may
that
ask you to.
absolutely, I absolutely would be very happy with that.
I think they're both Dunkin' Donuts signs.
There should not be anything on that.
Yeah.
on
The flag
pole.
ones.
It's
They're big, I'll show you, this is one of them I got.
They change a lot. Sometimes they're like
This
ones
is
that stick
so-
in the ground.
this is-
Car behind me, and I
This is somewhat,
Yeah.
this is somewhat tangential, but we operate a mystery shopper program for this particular company. Our people go around and they check for signs, and it's a constant battle to try and get them to remove them, but I can tell you by 10 o'clock tomorrow, those will be gone. We check
one
on the
each side
station
of the lot,
about once a
and-
month, and anything temporary gets removed.
And
So-
they do kind of block
And
when
they
you're
should-
leaving, because they're posted right
Absolutely
there where
should
your
not be
vision
there.
is to get into the roadway.
It's a super busy intersection.
Yeah.
They should not be there.
So I guess my only question is what you raised, Mark, and that is whether you're gonna be able to see under it if you need to. And I can't remember exactly where it was placed. It's showing on
Sign's
this.
far enough from the intersection, and you don't really have to look under it.
It's
to
not
see
the intersection, it's like the two paths, so there's like the
Driveways.
gas tanks and then an entrance and an exit right there, and then down the other end.
I mean, it looks to be the existing one, it's pretty high up. It just would have
Yeah.
been nice to have that dimension.
Yeah, I-
Because you don't have it, in fact,
not
you
on
don't
the-
have the overall height of
not up there on that
we're
sign.
guessing it's under 18, but we don't know
It's
I
not
that.
guess
on
you
the,
can add them all up here.
Here's a picture that shows it a little
I thought
better.
there was
It's in the
number, I
packet.
thought there was distances on the side of that, Mary? I thought-
Those are just the signs, there's no
Oh,
measurement
they're
from grade.
Oh.
And that would have been a nice,
I don't see how it could make a difference,
have
because
that,
you'd have to look through the gas canopy and you'd have, if you were really wanting to
yeah.
look through
I mean, it
that.
probably
It's more if
isn't,
you're gonna
it's
take
just,
a,
it would have been a nice dimension to have on the
I
drawing.
I
And it looks
apologize.
fairly high up right there. So-
Yeah, it does look fairly high up, and it's not
Yeah.
really where you'd look through. And if it's got the right setback, it most likely isn't.
Yeah.
It's like anything else, so hard
Yeah, you guys
numbers
should come close.
avoid,
I appreciate
avoid the assumptions.
We buy this all the time, there's
yeah, I
the sign
do
up
too.
there.
My kids ride their bikes there all the time.
Yeah, I hate to say, I go by all the time, I never notice the sign, so.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Partly because I know what's in that building, so.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is they're just adding a couple panels.
Yeah.
And it's like a ladder sign, in front of even Donlands where they, each one, there's a board for each company. And those are expandable if a new business goes in and that kind of thing, so.
There any abutters?
Do we have any abutters here that'd like to speak to this application? Any owners who'd like to speak to the application? Okay, I'm going to read the comments from the building inspector. 25 King Street hearing. The petitioner seeks a variance pursuant to section 17335 on-premises signs in business and industrial districts, specifically C1, principal freestanding signs shall not exceed 50 square feet. I do not see in our records where a building permit application was denied for this proposed increase in sign size. The request may have been a verbal conversation advising to seek a variance from the board. In 2007, the ZBA did grant a variance for a freestanding sign 61.98
.98, I guess.
square feet. And in 2014, a building permit was issued for a new sign at 50, so
So we had previously
Granted
granted
it.
a variance for a
but they
larger
probably
sign.
didn't build it. That was probably the prior owner. Okay, anybody want to close the hearing?
Are they new stanchions, or are they gonna be,
No, it's going to be exactly the same.
you're not gonna replace them?
So one
No, sir.
stipulation could be maintain the same height and width.
Yeah, it's the same metal poles. It's really amounts to a pretty minor change to it, in terms of the actual structure and base of the sign.
I move we close the hearing.
Second?
Second that?
Wait a minute, that was Jeff, seconded by John, all right with you, Red? I heard him first.
I don't know, I thought I heard.
Mark, but that's all.
Oh, was it Mark? I thought it was Rod.
We sound alike.
All right.
It looked like.
Jeff and Mark, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll close the hearing. Do you want to deliberate now?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I have no problem with the sign as proposed. I would say we mentioned two conditions. One, no temporary signs.
Absolutely.
And two, that the sign be the same height and width. And I know it will be.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
that's
make it a
what we'll say,
condition.
the same height, width, and location that it is now.
Yeah.
I'd like to just modify that. I don't want to say no temporary signs because they are allowed some temporary signs for
Okay.
certain reasons under
Within
the
the
zoning bylaw. I would say no signs advertising the businesses on the premises. What do you think within? Go ahead. You have an idea?
Well, I was just wondering, that sign is advertising a promotion for a business, not the business
Right.
itself. So are you referring to that as well?
Yeah, and according to the bylaw, temporary signs advertising promotions are allowed. But I think that the argument for giving the variance is to keep the clutter down. So I think that we should say something like, no temporary promotional signs for the businesses there should be allowed without approval of the board or the building inspector, maybe.
Any place on the lot or just in the
I
vicinity?
think on the frontage.
Okay.
Don't you think on the frontage?
Yeah, I think those temporary signs are actually on town property, not the.
Really? If they put them on the on like the face of their establishment, I don't think that's an issue. If it's a freestanding,
No, you go on,
now it depends on where it's
you go on
located.
stapled to a telephone pole, I mean, really.
Yeah, that would not be good.
Okay.
You know the telephone pole's on town property.
So that was your feeling. Do you want to make it into a motion, or does someone else want to add anything to it?
No?
You want to convert that to a motion?
Go ahead, you said all the words.
We heard you.
The only thing we're questioning is what we do with the temporary.
Well,
signs.
yeah, because could you talk about the specific wording of the temporary
Well,
promotional
I
sign?
think I'd like it to say, no temporary signs promoting business or products to be allowed on the frontage of the lot.
Oh, frontage of the lot.
To be
okay.
allowed along the frontage of the lot.
Which would the green space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's say the green space, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Except
Along
it's
the
not
green
green.
space frontage of the lot. Let's put right in the decision,
Okay.
to keep the clutter, to keep sign clutter down, okay?
Okay.
And then you said same height, width, and location.
So, I move that we grant a variance at 25 King Street to allow a sign that exceeds 50 square feet, and the sign will be 75, what will it be?
It will be 65 square feet.
65 square feet, as shown, as presented. Such sign will be the same height and width, use the same structure, and and use the same structure and location. The condition, which is the condition shall be the same height and width and location. And second condition will be no temporary signs providing business or promoting business or products to be allowed on the frontage.
And let's say, and the sign, in other respects, conforming to the bylaw as to lighting and hours of illumination.
Okay.
Now, just one quick question. Somebody wrote 65.25 square feet here. So do we want to say not to exceed 66 square feet? Because if we say 65.25 is over.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Good job.
So that was the motion?
That was a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to do what Jeff said.
What the two of you said.
Sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none.
Thank you.
Variance is
Thank you very
granted.
much.
Thank you for your presentation.
So much I pay attention.
Ever since that disappeared, we go by so often.
I know.
My husband literally watched somebody come out in front of our.
Siri.
I just spent 2
Oh,
weeks
yeah.
in English.
He watched me on the Western Side of the house, and he walked out, was like,
Work because it's cheaper than it's in town, so.
Yeah. No, I don't think Shell was in town.
Yeah.
There's two mobile. There's this one and the other
All
one.
right, our next hearing is 7:35 PM case number 930A. The petitioner Joseph Brine requesting a special permit pursuant to section 17353 for a detached accessory apartment at 323 King Street. Good afternoon, good evening, Mr.
Good
Brine.
evening.
I love your new house.
Thank you. We do too. So, I gotta, somebody quickly sketch one out for me. So, I'm hoping to pass
Turn around,
tonight.
try to figure out which.
Thank you.
We can share.
I have 9.
The kids at the table, we can share.
Printed out what you sent in the email.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'm going back around to you, John. You're the voting alternate this time.
Okay, what is this now?
And.
Okay,
I need
so-
to Just get my bylaw out.
Yep. So Joe Bryan, 323 King Street, looking for a variance for residential above my barn,
Special permit.
special permit.
It's just a different standard of.
Okay, gotcha. I have been approved by the Board of Health for my septic. So that was one of the issues that I think I needed to jump over that hurdle. I got a 4-bedroom septic, which I didn't even know I had a 4-bedroom septic. Actually, it was a 3-bedroom septic. So it's been approved. He wanted me to possibly put something on the deed stipulating that the house could only be 2 bedrooms and the barn only be the 1 bedroom, which is 1 bedroom / just an open space.
When you say he, Jim Griffey?
Yes, yeah.
Give me a minute.
What are we looking at here? Is this shading the new part, or is it?
That's really the highest peak, so it's a attic type apartment.
So
up
it's a
there.
flat ceiling area, and then the other areas will be
Yeah,
sloped.
come down, you got it,
Okay.
yeah,
And it's above the barn?
yeah,
It slopes down to a 4-foot wall.
yeah, yeah.
I read in your narrative that you said, "I would like to appeal the restriction on my barn." That doesn't mean that when you built it, you were restricted to no occupancy. You were just, that was your wording to say the zoning bylaw.
I believe, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, that's what confused me. I thought maybe someone had already restricted your barn altogether.
I think Shelley got a little confused. I think she was trying to restrict me due to some kind of zoning issue, but her and
Where are you in this?
Roland?
It's not this
thank you,
one.
discussed it, and they realized that whatever Shelley was trying to do was incorrect.
No, that's signs. What, 173 what?
Standards for permitted accessory
58.
apartments.
Okay. We're new to this bylaw, so bear with me while I just see what it says.
Oh, so this is a new bylaw, it's not like a dependency relationship?
That's right, it's no
Document.
longer a dependency relationship. The accessory dwelling doesn't have to have dependency. But it says not more than one accessory apartment on a lot. It has to be located inside a detached, single-family dwelling as an interior unit, or designed to maintain the appearance of a single-family dwelling, or
This barn is detached right now?
Yes.
here.
Okay, so
It's one-
that's not within the single family?
No, it's 17360B, an accessory apartment in a detached
Detached, yeah.
accessory structure, an exterior unit, if the following criteria are met. And this is, again, a special permit, and as long as it's not detrimental to the neighborhood. Number one, we have to comply with 17358E through G, so we'll go back up there. And the exterior appearance of the accessory structure is compatible with the principal dwelling on the same lot. Well, that's already existing, okay. So now we have to go back to E through G. So E says the owners have to continue to occupy one of the units, and you're going to stay in the primary residence.
I would hope so.
And you have to have one off-street parking space for the accessory apartment in addition to off-street parking spaces for the principal. So how many parking spaces are on the lot?
Yeah, but the driveway goes all the way around the barn right now, so 50, 60,
You have at least 4.
yeah.
And where the driveway is located within 15 feet of the side lot line, is that,
15 feet now.
The driveway goes between the two buildings.
Okay, so that's
Yeah, I
not.
think it's 20 or 23.
So we don't have to worry
between
about
the buildings.
landscape.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think you've satisfied the criteria for us to grant a special permit if we determine that you have septic capacity and you're not more detrimental to the neighborhood than what's already there. So tell me what's either side of you and across the street, just for,
I have one residence next to me on King Street, and across the street's the church.
And the other side is town-owned.
The Two Brothers
The other side is
Trail.
Two Brothers Trail.
Actually, what's across the street is the parking lot of the church.
Yeah.
Hope those runners didn't wake you up on Sunday.
I'm up, unfortunately, I'm up with the animals, so,
Joe, what do you have in the barn, horses?
horses, yeah. I actually just had a couple sheep in there. That was an oops. We weren't really prepared for that,
Been there.
yeah.
Okay, board, questions?
I don't think you answered mine.
What was your question?
Well, the fact that the dependency doesn't rely, it doesn't.
Is there any,
And she-
you
and
know, like with
everything she
the
read.
senior housing, or is there any restriction on size of the size of the unit?
So, yeah, it says,
Rooms. Nature.
It does refer to size, but not in 17360. It doesn't
I believe there's a room restriction, but I'm well within that, because there's only 2 bedrooms. I think there's 6 or 7 official rooms in my
A
house.
studio.
And then they get the studio, correct. Yeah.
Do you, so this is interesting. They, under a detached bill, on 17360, it seems like they relax the size requirement
on a detached,
on a detached.
yep, or missed it. That's the one we modified at town meeting because it was giving us trouble.
There isn't, it's just studio.
Accessory apartment shall not exceed the greater of 40% of the gross floor area of the single-family dwelling or 1,200 square feet, and cannot have more than 2 bedrooms. Now, that's on an inside unit, but if we use that guideline, what have you got for square feet in this? It's-
So the barn is 36 by 36, but obviously, it's an attic-type apartment, so I'm not sure what the official
Well,
square footage is, but
36 by 21.
36 by,
So it's less than 750 square feet.
oh, yeah, okay, because we're cutting it down, that's, yeah.
Yeah. And there's then some question about the 4-foot knee wall, whether that's, the 7-foot ceiling height.
Yeah,
and all
some
that
point
stuff.
don't count.
Yeah, I think
So
you're
it's-
talking about maybe 700 square feet.
And so your house under the, well, I don't think it applies.
I don't think it applies
Yeah.
either.
So, anyway.
All right, board, any butters have anything to say about this petition? Okay, I'll take a motion to close the hearing.
Move we close.
I'd second it.
Joe?
I'd second it.
And all those in favor of closing the hearing?
All right.
Hearing is closed. Who wants to make a motion? Or want to deliberate or make a motion?
Is this the only plan we have to reference?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, we can still read Roland's comments into the record. Petitioner seeks a special permit pursuant to 17360 accessory apartments by special permit. The proposal is for an accessory unit on the second level of the existing detached barn. The Board of Health has reviewed the plan, and the sewage disposal system is of adequate size to handle the additional flow for the accessory apartment. No further comment. And it says, from Jim Gareffi to Shelley, the septic system for this property was designed for a 4-bedroom house. This allows 4 bedrooms, 9 rooms. A review of the floor plan for the existing house and the proposed barn renovation find the combined living space bedrooms will consist of 8 to 9 rooms and 3 bedrooms. The septic system has the capacity to handle the existing house with the barn renovation. This office would not recommend the creation of any further living space on the property, i.e. finished basement or attic. So I'll take that as a comment that doesn't have to be addressed by us because any additional living space would have to be addressed by the building inspector first. So anybody want to make our motion?
I move we grant the petitioner a special permit for an accessory apartment at 323 King Street as shown in his, in the drawing submitted to the board.
Second?
Second.
Who was that this time?
Rod.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.
Great. Thank you very much,
Good
everyone.
luck to you.
Good
Have a
luck.
good night.
Get all these in butters. And put everybody's
Okay,
food.
now, we have a couple of administrative matters to handle, but I have people in the room who are here for an informal discussion on the update review of 286 Goldsmith Street. This was scheduled for tonight for a 6-month follow-up, and so they're here tonight for us to hear what's going on with the neighbor that was supposed to do a few things. So, identify yourself, please.
Where did you join in, 6 Charles Street or right next door? I may as well. I'll start. 6 months ago, the board allowed Timothy Newfell, whose address is 286 Goldsmith Street, to maintain, he was allowed to keep his personal pickup truck there, one pickup for the business, and there was a discussion back and forth among the board as to whether or not that should have been allowed. He had 3 snowplows in his carport that he had put up without a permit, and there was a shed in the back that had been put up without a permit. The board said he would be allowed to keep 2 snowplows there. The 3rd snowplow went to a location on Whitcomb that he rents property. The 2 snowplows were pulled out of the carport and have been placed in front of his garage, and they've stayed there for 6 months. And my understanding was he needed them to be in the carport for purposes of protecting the property. So they've been sitting there since the last meeting. It seems as though every month, Mr. Newfell forgets what the board told him he was allowed to do. And there are vehicles, business vehicles parked there. He has trucks that have those, the sides on the pickup truck, the wood sides on the pickup truck. He has those. Those don't fit into the carport. He also has those pickups that have machinery that is being towed, and those are parked there as well. And it was last week at 7 in the morning, I got woken up by hammering and drilling outside my bedroom window because 2 of his employees were out there with 2 vehicles, and they were trying to fix the truck with hammers and drills. And when I went outside and told him it was 7 o'clock and he wasn't supposed to be doing anything before 8 o'clock, his employee informed me that, well, we have to make a living, which my response very kindly was, yes, and some people have to sleep. But there's no consistent behavior from him. His consistent behavior is once a month, he violates what the board wants him to do. He has not, my understanding is he has not pulled a permit for the shed, which was supposed to have been moved according to the board and back. He now has a sign on Goldsmith Street saying that he has firewood for sale with Newfell Landscape right there on the corner of Goldsmith and Charles Street. And what he's doing is he's piling the wood up against the fence that the other neighbor on Goldsmith, so he's pushing that fence out. even more and encroaching more on his neighbor, who is extremely intimidated by Tim and won't come. He was here the last time and was very shy. Let's see.
He, as I recall, had a plot plan that showed that the shed was actually located partially on his property.
Partially on the other person's property and partially on his. And the board had required it to be moved. And then
he
there was
hasn't
a.
done that yet.
He hasn't done any of that. He hasn't even pulled permits. And my understanding was it was going to be difficult because of, there's supposed to be enough area around it to be able to walk to get into it and all, and he wasn't having that. Let's see. I mean, I'm to the point where it's as though, he's going to continue to flaunt the decision of the board in terms of what he is supposed to do. He's continuing to conduct business at his location by having vehicles. What I find really interesting is when the vehicles are parked on Charles Street and they're doing whatever they do, instead of going down Charles Street and then on to Goldsmith, they go around the residential area by the school and then come up West Roxbury.
Can I ask you a question? Remind me again, did this come before the board on a letter from the building inspector to cease and desist, or did it come before the board on the neighbors complaining about Newfell's? Do you remember?
I think it was both. Number one, it was the violations because he hadn't pulled permits. I think that they were non-compliant
And
structures.
he appealed that, and then he asked for a variance or a special
Then he asked
permit
for a variance,
for
and
the
then they-
things
and
that
then the
were
neighbors-
in violation.
Then the neighbors came in.
So I think what we need to do, and we'll hear from you too if you want, but I think that we've heard enough to just say what we need to do is to ask the building inspector to go back out and issue another letter based on the current violations.
I agree that that could be done, but then that gives him more time to continue doing what he's doing, Sherry. I mean, this is a person who gets the letter from the board, ignores it, and, I mean, the past 3 days, there's been nothing at the house. Okay? Because he knows. And Shelley goes by on a regular basis, and she calls him.
But my memory
No.
is that we gave him a conditional pass on some of the things to see how it went for the next 6 months, and that left us open to call him back in and say, it's not going well, and so you can't have some of the things we gave you. I think what we need is to have the file in front of us. I don't mind it being the very next meeting,
Okay?
but we need to have him and the file hauled in here.
And I think we need to have the building inspector reissue his complaint, so that we have something to find against and say, hey,
We
What
we
she's-
gave him a pass on the shed, on his
Yeah.
giant pergola, on the carport.
Yeah.
And,
And my memory was.
and
it
that,
was-
now he's
we've-
running a business,
Yeah.
he's doing this wood business.
Yes, and the building inspector is the enforcer, not us. So
Yeah,
if he
every-
issues something, then that could force
Yeah,
him to
'cause
come
then-
back
The
here.
the problem is, John and Rod, what Laurie's afraid of is that if you let the building inspector issue another letter of enforcement, that gives him another 20-day appeal right to come back in here and appeal the building inspector's decision. So then we're going another month. I think that
What recourse
we
do we
need to
have
have the
other than-
building inspector issue a demand from this board that you're in violation, and the board is going to act on rescinding some of the grants that they gave.
Well, the other thing too is the building inspector, can the town issue a cease and desist for him with respect to business at his location?
Yeah, and then he's got a 20-day appeal right from
From that, okay, because that's even more strict than
I have the letter.
what you all
originally
had
from
done.
That day.
What's that?
I have the letter that that Shelley wrote for the original case.
So it was an appeal from that letter,
Yes.
but Julian, it was also, at the same time, he brought a request for a variance, and I think we even continued at one time because he didn't have both structures on, if my memory's right.
Yeah, it was a home occupation.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the plans.
So I
For you
think what we
guys.
did is we said, we're going to
Says that he's.
enforce the building inspector's decision, but we were going to give him a variance, and we were going to limit,
yeah, so we told him you had to get permits for the things you built without a permit.
Yeah.
Move the shed back
Yeah.
onto your property, and limit your vehicles. And we gave him one extra vehicle that above and beyond
Yeah,
what
it's
the
an-
what the code allows now.
It was based on the appeal of the decision of the zoning enforcement officer.
so I think what we need to do is issue a letter stating that the board is going to act on rescinding their decision of whatever date that was, and we're going to act on that next month, and we want him to appear before us, or it'll just be done. Yeah, don't you
I
think
also
that's-
wonder if they have a recourse to go to the selectmen and try to get the home occupation permit pulled.
I don't think he has one. I think that was the
Probably
issue.
doesn't
He
know,
doesn't.
and that's
You're
the
allowed
point.
home
No.
occupation by right, and he,
No, you're supposed to fill out a form every year for a home
Oh.
occupation. My wife has to do it.
okay.
Yeah,
So-
and true, I don't know if he has one or not, so that's the other thing too.
Yep.
It's difficult because his address is 286 Goldsmith. I think it would be a whole different issue if his driveway and the garage was on Goldsmith Street, because then it would be really impacting a major street, but because it's on Charles Street, you know,
yeah.
out of sight, out of mind.
If he wakes you up at, before 8 o'clock in the morning, you call the police, and they'll send somebody out to inform him that he has to stop now. And they
I-
won't care whether you were.
So is the 8 o'clock a condition that we impose? Because I think the town bylaw
No,
is
that's
7.
town bylaw.
Town
It's
bylaws, I looked
7.
it up.
I thought it was 7, yeah.
On Saturday, I believe it's 8. But weekdays, it's 7.
But I think you all told him 8 at the time that we were here, and I did not call the police. I ended up videoing, so I've got video of banging and drilling at 7 in the morning, and I
We
did,
did say 7. Cannot start vehicles earlier than 7, except for snow plowing, because that happens whenever the snow falls.
well, starting is one thing, repairing,
Yeah.
But that goes to the home occupation issue.
So we can rescind the extra car, keeping the snow plows there.
We can have.
Maybe
building-
not having allowing the shed to be within 10 feet of a property line, in this case, it's minus. And that would force the building inspector to issue a cease and desist and maybe start fines.
Exactly.
would we have an opportunity as neighbors to come in here and voice our opinions with respect to him applying for a permit for that carport?
If there's a hearing, you
yeah.
definitely have
Okay,
the right to come to it.
just because of the fact that that carport it's there, and so he'll park a truck with equipment.
So
that
when
he
he took
chose.
the snowplows out of it, did he put anything in the carport?
No, he didn't put anything in the carport. The carport was basically open. There were some days that he'll park his own personal pickup truck in there. Right now, his boat is half in and half out.
Boat?
And then it's open for him to, whenever he has a pickup truck that has a, tree shedder or whatever else, he just backs it into the carport. So, it's used for him. Sure, sorry. That's my neighbor.
My name is Don Wade. I'm from 6 Charles Street, right across the street from.
5 Charles Street.
I'm sorry. 5 Charles Street, I apologize.
Go to the right house tonight.
Don can come, you can't.
And as an example, 5 days last week, he parked his 6-wheeler dump truck in the yard with his pickup truck, as well as put under the portico, the carport, his trailer with a skid steer on it. So 5 days. That's in violation of what the board said, I believe, last time. He's not supposed to be operating a business out of the house. He still does that. I mean, there's multiple things he's done. On Sunday, the 7th of July this year, at 10:35 a.m. on a Sunday morning, he starts a skid steer. He backs it under the carport. He does something with equipment there, takes off with his truck and trailer, leaves the skid steer there. I left for the day, but I know he came back at some point, started the skid steer up again on a Sunday, and put it back on the trailer, because in the next morning, Monday morning, the skid steer is already on the trailer. I mean, it is repeatedly, time after time after time, he violates what the agreements were. On Martin Luther King storm day, the snowstorm that happened, he had both 6-wheeler trucks with their plows on them pre-queued in his carport. In the morning, he drove his pickup truck on the property. That means 3 trucks on the property at that time. 4 days later, there's another snowstorm, same exact thing. 2 6-wheeler dump trucks with the plows already queued up on there, with this truck in there again. So 3 more trucks in the, it's repeatedly, it comes on and on and on. That's about,
So Dawn, I'm going to tell you, again, what I said is, I think the way to handle this is to bring him back before us on a threat to rescind the exclusions and the permits that we granted him.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we get a building, we're going to go back and forth. The
It
building
is going back and
inspector's
forth.
giving a
And-
letter, he's going to appeal that letter.
Quite frankly,
And it
he's
says here,
not
we were
paying
going to, it said the board could review this exception in 6 months. So we did not establish this as a date certain for review. So I think it's only fair and fitting that we say it'll be next month, but it's going to be a hearing on rescission.
okay.
All right? Everybody okay with that? So let's just, I'm going to say it on the record only because I want the admin to take it off when she's looking at it. Please issue a letter to Mr. Newfell advising him that the board is going to consider rescinding their votes of 6 months ago, both votes for the exceptions to the building inspector appeal and also the vote for the variances that were granted. And he's to appear before the board if he wants to be heard.
So we need a time certain. date and time
Yeah,
certain.
let's do that for 7, let's do that one for 8 o'clock.
It's too late, it may go longer,
Yeah, it's going to go long. Let's do it for 8 o'clock at,
the 15th.
that would be
19th, oh.
July 15th.
15, August 15.
August 15th.
We just have one other case scheduled right now.
Yeah.
I would do it before 8.
I would do it because
We
otherwise.
have one other case scheduled
Yeah, the
right
one
now?
that just got, oh, no.
No, we
he's-
went
he's-
to-
We don't
Yeah,
have
so
We
let's
don't
do,
have any.
so let's do 7:30.
Yeah, that
Okay.
way, if we don't get any other
Okay,
cases.
and I copied the building inspector on that.
Okay, so this will be formally on for, I guess, a hearing on whether or not to rescind the decisions of 6 months ago on Tim Newfield's. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Because as I remember, the board was awfully generous, and I think I voted against
I
it.
think I was there at the
we-
meeting, but listening to what you guys.
We
it's like, boy, you guys are
responded
really-
to a
you
guy
look at the-
working
You
hard,
look at the
trying
lot,
to,
the
you know,
stuff
but
on it.
it's not the right spot.
And I think I voted no because I didn't like that extra truck being there.
Yeah.
I know, okay.
I'm just annoyed that, you give a guy a break and he ignores you.
Yeah.
And
Okay, we have a
Now
couple
we should
things to
Make
finish
sure
up.
we ask the building inspector whether or not he did get a permit or not, all that stuff.
I would like to catch up on the minutes. I'd also like to return to the agenda for a minute and tell you that what I see coming down the pike, because we don't have all the members tonight, we were supposed to talk about the reorganization of the board, which is essentially, we have our 5 regular members. We're missing a clerk. We need to do some voting on chairperson, vice chair, and clerk. And I think whether we do it tonight or whether you want to wait till we have a full membership, think about that for
Well, I'm
for the
looking at
next
chairman
meeting.
and vice chair. The only question is,
Who wants to be clerk?
Seconded.
I think we vote the people that are missing.
That's right.
the clerk, I guess, would have to be either Mark or Cheryl because they're the ones in town.
Yeah, it's always convenient when you have the clerk in town. You want to take it?
What does the clerk do?
You sign the decisions, but it just means that on the day that,
Promise?
on the day that Jeff and I come in at the last minute with a
Yeah.
decision, we call you and say, can you get your tail over to
Okay.
the town hall
And,
and sign it?
if for whatever reason you can't, Sherry can sign that.
And he can in my
Okay, so
house,
basically, the duties of the clerk is to sign the,
Yeah.
the decision.
You go to the town clerk's
But-
office, they stamp it and do all kinds, I mean, it takes 3 minutes.
All right, let's have a vote.
Okay, I move that we appoint Sherry as chairperson, Jeff as vice chairperson, and Mark as clerk.
Second?
Do we vote on this or do we?
Oh, you have to, should you appoint 2 alternates?
Only one alternate.
For the voting?
Oh, 1 alternate, yeah.
we didn't vote.
I think I'm up to you two.
Okay.
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 So you moved it second?
Can I second it?
You can second it.
I'll second it. Let's get it over
We
with.
gotta vote on it anyway.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And
Having
thank-
been the clerk,
Thank you,
it's not
Rod.
really-
Thank you, Jeff.
You do need to, it does help to be in town, but otherwise it's not a big time commitment.
All right, now, I want to
You might
say,
you might need to keep track of the day when they're due and remind us, but
Oh, okay.
there are some zoning bylaw amendments that are being proposed. Shelley and Roland and I have been talking about them, and I think we talked about them last meeting after the meeting, but they didn't come down for this meeting, but I want to just give you a heads up as to what I think they might be. One is that we should start working on a contractor's yard bylaw, because we keep having this issue with home occupations and contractors and their equipment, exactly what we had tonight, and we've seen it more and more recently. So we're trying to work on that bylaw, all of us, planning board included, and I think with all of your expertise, it would be great to have input. The second one we're trying to work on is, Roland's pretty adamant, or has been adamant in the past, that there should be some sort of a density requirement on the size of a house and how much it impacts, like in the smaller neighborhoods where the lots are smaller. And if we're going to allow change, extension, or alteration of a pre-existing, that maybe there ought to be a density ratio. And Cheryl is in favor of that. I haven't seen the language yet to know whether I'm for or against it, but that's one of the other things we've been talking about. The third thing Roland was talking about last week, and it was an interesting concept, is that there ought to be some bylaw that says that if your neighbor's unsightly mess next door is impacting your marketability and fair market value of your property, and that can be quantified, that there should be some sort of a tax break or exception for your property. And something like that might encourage enforcement more often of.
Or maybe a tax surcharge on the person.
Yeah.
who-
Or tax-
Yeah. Because the town's been unsuccessful in getting a couple of people I won't name
Yeah,
to
yeah.
clean up, and
Yeah.
they won't.
So that's just food for thought. I don't have draft language in front of me to say anything about it. They're just the bylaw changes and revisions that I've been hearing about.
Well, is that addressable through the property tax abatement system? You could say, okay, based on comps, my house is worth this, but because
Based on the
of
mess next door.
this, I would never get that.
Yeah,
And then
that's
you
what
bring
he
in-
thinks. So I didn't disagree. My general sense is, I think that's a good direction to go, but one man's junk is another
Well,
man's
yeah,
treasure,
that's-
and it's very hard to
Whatever,
quantify.
if they decide to go down that road, which I'm not sure I agree with, please don't bring it before this board, because it's like the neighbor disputes. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just can't adjudicate it, and,
Successfully.
so, anyway.
So
feel
that, just
for
just
people who have
food for
problems.
thought, I'm not making a comment
And
one way
just
or
one
another.
comment, if you get involved with the contractor thing, I think we need a limited lot size, because this example, it's just way too dense for what he's trying to put on that property. But if it's larger, like the Hunter appliance, that's bigger, there's more space, and you could make, more exceptions for something like that.
Well, you had the case last week with Dell with the security place. I mean, that's a tiny lot, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Exactly.
wall to wall.
Yeah.
Although it's in a,
Commercial.
Yeah,
zone.
you're right, it's not like it's in the middle of.
this isn't an
a-
neighborhood.
And the lot got smaller on him beyond his control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are a fair number of people who start a business small, and it gets bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
at some point, they should become a real business and go to a commercial location, and they don't.
Yeah, and speaking of that, there was some discussion with somebody was gonna contact the planning board about changing that, 3,000 square foot minimum, or whatever?
3-acre minimum on
3-acre
Chuck
minimum.
Bell's, and that was supposed to be brought to the planning board by his attorney. I was going to go to the meeting if they asked me to, and I didn't hear anything.
Does it grandfather in lots though that are already currently like that? Like how does, say you already have a home occupation and you already have significant machinery on your, and you're not, I don't know, in a residential neighborhood is built around you, or, I don't know.
If you are a pre-existing, non-conforming commercial operation, which is what we had with, I can't think of his name, that lives beside the Life Care Center.
Keith Carroll. That's basically the thing I was thinking,
Yeah.
like, so what do you do with somebody like that?
We found that he was grandfathered only because he was able to trace back that that was a construction lot long before zoning was enacted
Okay.
in town. But it's not the same.
Okay.
If it's a residential and you're in a residence, even though you got bigger than you should have, that doesn't grandfather you.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to do the minutes and then I want to call it a night, if everybody's in favor of that. May, does anybody have any comments?
I'll accept whatever your comments are. You're always so detailed.
You make me look so good.
Well, you
Which one
do
are
a
you
great
looking at?
job, so why
I'll
not?
tell you, thank you. I'll tell you
I
what.
looked through it, I didn't see
Which one, May or June?
the
May, I'm just looking, the first time Roland is introduced in the May minutes, I want him to say Commissioner Bernier, because he just comes out of the clear blue, and a reader who doesn't know the town might, or 10 years from now, when it's someone else, might not know who he was. And then, case 923A, petitioner never extended the previous granted variance. I want to say commence construction or extended, because a commencement would have extended it. And then, where it says Bartholomew and a butter at 5 Forest Road, she was concerned if the patio deck or footprint on the non-conforming side, or she had concerns about that, and I think that we said the board doesn't have jurisdiction over building on the slab outside the variance being discussed. I wanted to introduce that. We didn't say we don't have jurisdiction, we said on the side of the lot. That's my memory, on the side of the
That
lot.
was as of right,
Yeah,
anyway.
on the
Yeah.
side that was as of right, we don't have jurisdiction.
And shouldn't there be a first name or a Ms. or something?
I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, thank you. Okay. And then over on the next page, at the bottom, last paragraph, 835, 926, I just made some comments. Oh, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs up, Gould stated the dwelling is still less than 50% of the property. Then it says Gould is adamant that the wording in the decision restrict residential living in the structure. I want to just say Gould wanted the wording in the decision.
Well, okay. Residential living, do we want to use that term then, or do we want to say accessory apartment, or?
Gould wanted the wording in the decision to restrict residential occupancy in the structure. Is that all right?
Yeah, because you wanted to make sure that they
It's
Didn't
not an
convert
didn't
it.
live in it, but that if
Yeah.
someone stayed overnight was
Yeah.
one thing.
Because he was putting in a bathroom and
Yeah.
a kitchenette kind of a thing, and for his office use, and I just didn't want it to turn into a bedroom without Board of Health. Okay. 926A, the board continued with the hearing on William Vale's appeal. And then, just some language modifications in there, adding adjectives where they were left out. There's nothing big there. And then the parties agreed to continue the hearing to June 20. Okay?
The May 16th one, I was not present.
Does it say you were?
Yeah, yeah.
Where is that?
On the front page.
Yeah, the front page at the top.
Well, then I will strike you out.
No, it says absent.
Absent.
Yeah, you're absent.
The May 16th one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says
You
right
look in June
here.
or May?
Oh, that's why I don't.
May 16th, 2019.
That's why I don't
Yeah.
remember.
It says-
Yeah,
It is absent.
absent.
Well, my copy's, okay.
Yours is different?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, look.
Okay, it got corrected. Oh, that's where I had to go to the tape.
What other documents here?
you absent, except for you. You have a special packet just for Mark.
It's one of those
why-
ghost cameras.
That's scary.
Okay, can we approve the minutes of May 16th
Move
as
the approve
modified?
as amended.
Okay, and then, and June. I want to report, and I'm pleased to report, that I
Oh, then you're right.
was successful in getting Omni to talk Pittarino into raising the hydrant. So I think that's a done deal now.
I think balls should be bollards.
Oh, yeah.
Balls should be what?
Bollards.
Ballards or bollards?
Also, I think she's referring,
No, that's-
There's a couple yaps in here, and I
Well,
think it's
there's a
supposed to
couple,
be
yeah, there's
Yates.
some, yeah.
She probably does the Board of Health also, so.
Under present, should she list who's alternates and who's regulars, or just list it like that?
I don't think I was here on this
I
one.
don't
Under present, it's
That
okay.
was last week, right?
You were out in
Not
June.
here,
We'll
okay.
get you out
I don't
in
have a
June.
copy in front of me, there wasn't one in my packet.
Oh,
And even if it was,
know,
you know
right?
it's the right one.
Where are the bollards, Mark?
Well, and there's these last two.
First paragraph, Mark Gallagher from Seal Harbor. You
Thank
go
you.
halfway down, I think what they need.
Okay.
Bollards. Those are,
really funny.
those
That's funny.
cement-filled lolly columns.
You can
Okay.
ask me, Cheryl, so I can
All right,
read
next
it.
is on the next page.
Oh, yeah.
Is that like monkey balls?
I'm okay down to Rosen stated that he feels it
She not there
wrong
either?
for
Yes, Chris.
the town to suggest that the property
They're
is
not
not
there
properly
either.
zoned for a business that's been operating for more than 20 years. Cobley sent a letter to cease using the property as a commercial, that's all fine. In the next paragraph, when it says Yates asked Rosen if he asserts that was very wordy and unnecessary, so I just want to take that paragraph out with your permission.
Yeah.
And then, 2 pages later, again, Bell repeatedly interrupted board members. That's unnecessary to have in the minutes.
I agree.
It happened, but
Yeah.
it wasn't critical to, okay. And then Gould stated that there is no way to overturn. I want to say that the ZBA has no jurisdiction or no way to overturn, okay? And then Ringwalsh is spelled wrong, and I think that was it. Okay to approve the,
Just going on page 4, like the third paragraph, you want to call it, that last line, police have fined them heavily for unregistered vehicles, that's that veiled, I thought they hadn't been fined.
I think they did,
Or could have
like
been.
5 years or something ago, many years earlier, the problem had come up and the police
Oh,
had gone
okay.
over there.
I just couldn't, I don't know, it just hit me when I read that, I thought they hadn't been.
The only thing that concerned me about the registered vehicles, because he gave us pictures showing the registration plate and the registration,
Yeah, yeah,
they weren't all registered in Littleton.
oh, well,
And actually, it's David Audio, Autio,
where's that?
not David Gaudier.
Oh, that's what, AUTIO.
And then change the 2 yaps to Yates.
Yates, yeah.
I also, it's not in the minutes and shouldn't have been, but I remember him saying the registrations he showed us were fine, but there were other vehicles that weren't registered.
No, I left the police, I thought we got a report back from the police that they got out to look,
Yeah,
and everything was fine,
yeah.
so.
He is, he wrote a letter, I don't know if that's in the package, he wrote a letter upset that I made a typographical error in my decision. So in one section, I said the owner at 580 was upset about the nuisance on 580, and the nuisance was on 576. So he demanded that we amend the decision and give him another 20-day appeal. And we responded by amending the decision. I don't particularly think that elevates it to a 20-day appeal right, because it was a clear typo in the minutes, in the decision, but I did say that without specifically stating, we would give him a 20-day appeal. If he asked for one, I would probably suggest that we not object to it, that if he wants to bring this to court, that I wouldn't stand on ceremony on the 20 days, but that's up to the board and that's up to town council. Okay?
Well, the only other comment I had on the Vales one is we did spend a fair amount of time trying to differentiate between what a camper is and a mobile home is. And I don't think it's really addressed in here. I don't know if that's an issue, but it just, he insisted that it was a mobile home, and we're saying, no, it's a camper, and it's not really addressed in there. And since it was kind of a point of conflict, is that something that should be documented?
Yeah, you're right, and that's a very, very good point. Let's put that in. I'm going to,
There was a paragraph said there was discussion as the definition of a camper versus a
And-
mobile home.
We went on, the building inspector told us,
Yeah, and I think,
this is description.
yeah.
so you know what, I'm going to ask her to add a section about that after listening to that section of the tape again, and let's not vote June until we bring it back and see it. Okay, all
That makes sense.
right, want to close the
I move to close
meeting?
Second.
Move to adjourn, second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.